go ahead, take a deep breath, pull it in, hold, and let it out. You're here today to develop and strengthen your mindset because you know that weekly training sessions in mindfulness is the missing link the world is searching for when it comes to business success. So set aside the external logistical side of business growth and come with me now to a world of focus, purpose, calm, confidence, and personal power using NLP and CBT tools and techniques. I am your host, Leah Marie, and you're listening to Flip the Switch. Hey there, you guys, and welcome back to another episode of Flip the Switch. I am so excited about this episode, you guys, because we get to connect with the lovely Jamie Van Cuyk. Now, she is the expert on growing your team, and that happens when we are wanting to hire, and she also is working inside of the hiring and management sector of that, bringing together all of the strategies that you need to be able to grow your team. Now, this is very exciting because inside of this episode, Jamie is going to take us through three things. The when, and inside of the when, she's going to give us 4 different timing pieces that we need to look for when it's the right time to grow your team. We're going to look at how perfection isn't realistic and what the alternative is. And then we're also going to jump into expectations. Can't wait to get into this. So let's just jump right in. Hey there, you guys. Welcome to another episode of Flip the Switch. I am so excited today to bring to you Jamie Van Cuyk. She's the owner of Growing Your Team, which, I mean, who doesn't need that right now, right? She is a strategic business consultant who listens to the small business owners and helps them overcome their concerns and challenges around hiring and managing team members. So welcome so much to the show. Thank you so much, Jamie, for joining us, and welcome.
Well, hello. Thank you so much for having me today.
Wonderful. So we're going to have a little bit of fun today, you guys. We are going to jump into what it means and what it looks like to be able to kind of have that expanding growth in hiring your team, kind of like when is the right time anyways to be able to do this? And once we hire them, then what happens kind of thing? Because I think that's kind of like we start getting overwhelmed in those spaces, right? And then like what do we expect out of this? Like what's really going to happen here? So we're going to jump into some of those topics today. And we are also going to look at what type of mindset does it take to be able to do that so that we don't have the system running and yet we can't handle it emotionally. So let's jump into that, Jamie. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit of your story of kind of how you got to this place first, and just kind of what you love about doing what you do. And then we'll jump into some of those questions about like, when's the right time?
Sounds good. So my story starts back in corporate. So I really started the bulk of my career at a large international loyalty marketing firm. And I started off as account manager. And when I was there, I was ready to move up to the next level, and 2 positions became open at the same time. One was in sales, one was in management. And I sat there and said, well, I kind of want to do both. I think I could make a lot more money at first in the sales route, so maybe that should be it. And then I said, well, what's my ultimate goal? And I've always wanted to run my own business. I always said it, one day I'm going to be a business owner. I'm going to run my own business. I'm just spending time in corporate to learn. And I said, what role is really going to help me more as a business owner? And I said, well, I can always hire someone else to sell in my business. I'm never going to hire someone else to be the CEO or to be like at the top of the ladder. That has to be me, which means I need to learn how to run and manage a team. So I decided to throw my hat in the ring for the management position, got it, and then spent the next few years in corporate really learning what it was to manage a team, grow a team, retain team members. I had one of the top retention rates in our entire department. And I did a lot of hiring for my team, helping other people's hire for their team, and just really learned a lot about effective teams, being a great manager. And then I decided it was finally time. I was going to go start my own business. So I left to start a software development company with my husband. And 6 months into that, realized I hated it and needed to get out of there. But I was lucky enough that when I left my corporate job, they said, Jamie, we're not quite ready to give up on you completely. will you consult for us on a few projects? And I said yes, because one, when you're starting a software development company, there's no money at first because you have to build things you have to build an app in order to sell the app. So I was like, yes, I can have a little bit of income. And two, I was like, I don't have to give up completely like cold turkey on the relationships that I've been building all these years. So I consulted with them for 6 months, and it was all around leadership development and training. My one project was helping someone transition into a manager role for the first time. And I realized at that point in time that I loved consulting. I loved helping people become better leaders and better managers for their teams. And like I said, I realized I hated software development and everything having to do with it. So I was like, okay, this company I left my job for is not going to be my long-term thing. What should I do? And I said it should be something in consulting, something with teaching people leadership skills, management skills. And I immediately thought, well, I'll do that for corporate companies. I'll go in and train first-time managers, really teaching people how to move into that role so they can hire from within. But I live in a city where there's a lot of small businesses, a lot of small business support from our chamber, from our city government. So anytime I went to networking events, I found myself speaking to small business owners versus people in corporate companies. And people would hear what I was doing and they said, oh my gosh, that's great. Can you help me? Because I never hired someone before doing it in my own business. I've failed multiple times trying to get someone on my team that would actually work. Or people would be like, I bought a company and it had employees and I realized I was a horrible manager, and within 6 months, every employee that came with the business had quit and moved on to something else. Help me, help me. And at first I said, well, no, my target audience is corporate companies. And finally, after hearing over and over again that small businesses didn't have the background that I had, didn't have the knowledge, didn't have the training, I said, I think I need to help out small businesses. So I then formed the company that I have now, where I go in and help small businesses really learn how to hire the right staff, identify when it's the right time to hire. And then once you have people, whether it's a contractor or an employee, how to manage that person so you have great relationships, people are doing what you're paying them to do, and you can really build your team with that support of others.
I love it. Oh my goodness. I think that need is so, so great out there right now. And it's amazing. Like even I had, and so I don't know if you've ever heard of Habit Nest, but I had, a guest from Habit Nest, and his name is Mikey Adut, and he is the CEO of Habit Nest. And it's funny because I should maybe connect you guys, but after our podcast, or at the end of the podcast, I kind of said, well, what's next? And he said, I need to expand my team. Right. And I said, that was his specific thing. He was like, I just don't know where to even start with that stuff. So maybe I can connect you guys, but
Sounds good.
So, this is really great. So let's jump right into the first question that people have. The first question that people are going to have is number one, when is the right time to hire? And how do I wrap my head around that process? So what is the thought process I need to have? And what is the actions I need to take to know, like, timing wise?
Yeah, so the timing is really so specific to each individual business, and you really need to look at what's going on in your business and what's happening because you're either trying to do everything yourself or the support team that you have is not enough. So I always say that some people hire way too late because they're in that mindset of, I got this, we're chugging along, I'm just doing, and you don't realize that as your business is growing and expanding, more and more stuff is being put on your plate. And then other people sometimes jump in and hire too early because their business bestie hired, or this business over here hired, and they want to keep up with everybody around them. So like, I need to hire and jump in before they need it.
Or they just hate doing that task.
Yep.
And so like, I'm just going to hire someone else to do that part because I don't like it.
Yeah. So you really have to look at your business and identify if it's the right time for you. And most of the things that are signals that it's the right time have to do with a lack of time within your business. So either you're saying no to customers or clients who would be your idea client. Like you're saying no to money that you want. One thing is I always say is if you have a wait list, unless it's a wait list because there's a specific launch date, because it's an event or a new product that's being released, if you have a wait list because you just can't serve people as fast as they're coming to you, that's typically a sign that you need to hire someone to support you in some way. The other thing is you're losing customers because you're not getting around to answering their emails, answering their phone calls as quickly as they expect. So maybe as your business grew, you have less and less time to answer emails or phone calls. So people are getting upset and being like, I'm going to go elsewhere because this other person can service me at the rate I want to be serviced, or I can get my questions answered. Or people are coming to you for inquiries about you helping them. And by the time you answer their phone calls or answer their emails, you're hearing, oh, I already went with someone else. So you're losing business because you can't answer people as quickly as needed. So those are some of the things around time. And then the other thing is you're really lacking a skill set or knowledge that your business needs. So there comes a point in business where, yes, maybe you can learn how to do it yourself, but once you factor in how long it's going to take you to learn it, how long it's going to take you to master it, and then how long it's going to take you to execute it, you can sometimes pay someone else who's an expert who's going to come in, get it done, and you can spend all that time that you would have spent on it doing something else for your business that's going to generate revenue.
Yeah, awesome. Those are all really, really great points. So I love those 4 points that you brought up. And I think that that really makes sense for a lot of people. Now, what kind of a mindset do you think would work coming into that first part? So when you're just looking at those 4 parts, what is it sounds to me like if I'm just listening correctly, it sounds to me like the first part is actually just more of awareness, less versus actually having a mindset. It's having awareness of what's happening inside your business so that then you can move on to the next step. And I think that the next step is probably where the mindset shift maybe needs to come in, because that's when you're all of a sudden now doing the thing, right?
Yeah.
So if the first one is kind of awareness, does that make sense, or is there something else you would add to that?
Awareness is one of the biggest things there. You have to be aware what's going on in your business, and you have to be aware what's actually going on in your business versus what you're thinking. So recently I was working with a client, and one of the things that she said to me was, I don't deserve to have a team member, because she said, I'm young, my business hasn't been around that long, so why do I deserve to have a team member yet? And it was having to go back to like, look, you have all these signs that you can't keep doing things by yourself. Like this, and this is happening in your business. I don't care that you're only this age. I don't care that your business is only X old. You deserve to have a team member because you've worked your butt off to get your business to where it is today. So that's one of the mindset challenges that comes up there, is just not thinking that we're actually where we are yet.
I think too, mentioning that, like when I heard you tell me that story, is the thing that came to my mind is sometimes we think, well, I don't deserve that. But sometimes, like, in order to make that jump, we need to say, okay, but do your clients deserve it? Like,
Yes.
they're the ones suffering right now because you can't perform, because you are so good at what you do that people are knocking down your door pretty much. So if you want to perform and you want them to be able to receive the service at the level you want to serve them at, if you can't wrap your head around doing it for yourself, it might be easier to wrap your head around the idea of, my clients deserve this. It's time.
Yes, exactly.
Cool. Okay. So let's go into the second part. So let's say that they're now looking for their clients. They're saying, okay, now's the right time. I think I've got the right people. Do you have any tips on first finding the right people? And then second, what do you do once you've got them in the door?
Yeah. So with finding the person, the number one thing to do is be very clear on what you need. And this isn't just being clear on the tasks and responsibilities that the person's going to fulfill. That's part of it. You need to be very clear on that so you get the right person, but also very clear on, what does success look like in this role? So what's going to happen in my business because I hired this person? Is it that they're going to save you time because they're going to take over XYZ, which means you're then going to be able to go out and do more revenue generating tasks or work with more clients? So you're going to have more client hours available because you hire someone. Or is there more of a specific revenue metric that's going to be attached to this person? So let's say you're hiring someone to do marketing for you. And you're going to say, because I hired this person, I'm going to get X amount of dollars back for every Y dollar I spend in marketing. And so just knowing what you're kind of what you want to get in return for that is going to really help you find the right person, because it's going to help narrow your search down to people that can actually help you fulfill that need, that goal, versus going out and finding someone that you just happen to click with, but they can't actually produce what you need them to produce for your business.
Which is awful if you have to fire them because now you like them because you click.
Yes.
So here's a question that I have, because you said, well, it's not really a question. It's kind of a funny statement. I heard this one time before. I can't remember even who said it. So I apologize if you were the person that said it and I'm quoting you, dibs to you. But here's the thing. I once heard somebody say, like somebody had said to them, well, we can't read your mind, right? And somebody else then listening in said, well, actually, if they write it down, you can. Right? Like take what's in here and put it on paper and someone can literally read your mind. Like if you have a hard time telling somebody, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I want, like do a brain dump session and get out everything, like you said, the expectations that you have or the vision that you have of what that looks like successfully, and put that on paper so that other people coming in have something to go by and go, okay, this is what that looks like for them. Now I don't have to be guessing. Right?
Right.
And so I love that idea of if you want someone to read your mind, write it down.
Yeah. And I love that because it reminded me of this one time with one of my clients. Like she kept saying over and over again where I was like, describe the type of person you want. What do you want them to do? And every time I'd ask her like something about what this person should be doing, she'd be like, I want them to be a mind reader, that they should just know what I'm thinking and get it done. She goes, but I know that's not possible. And I was like, well, what would you expect this person to do if they could read your mind? And it was just kind of like twisting it around a little bit. And it was just like, oh, well, you expect the person to be a self-leader in their role, to know when what they're getting, for whether it's from you or from a client, is right or wrong, when they need to go out and gather more information, when they can go with what they have, to be able to make logical conclusions with the stuff that they have, so they don't have to come back to you with 20 million questions. It's like, okay, well, once we figured out what does a mind reader mean to you, then we were able to create a hiring process where they were able to find someone who acted like a mind reader to them. But yeah, it's about getting it out and figuring out what exactly that means to you. And yeah, I agree. Sometimes writing it down helps.
I love that because it really ties into our perceptions are different than other people's perceptions, right? And so I love how you coached her through the process of, okay, what does that look like for you? Because what that looks like for her may be totally different than what it looks like for somebody else. So that's awesome.
Yes.
I love that. Okay, so now they have a clear idea of who they're going to hire, and what that person's roles and responsibilities would be, what that success looks like. What do they do now? And we kind of touched on it with the whole expectations, right? Is how do they then move into connecting and communicating with that person in an efficient way so that that person does have success in their role and the employer is happy with the work as well?
Right. So the number one thing is, if you have expectations of what you want someone to do, how do you want them to do their job, what those goals are, you need to communicate them. You need to make sure that both parties understand what's going on. And sometimes it's one of those things that you don't realize what your expectations are or what you really want until it doesn't happen. So it's also understanding that things might not be perfect the first time around, and your team member that you hired might not do things exactly like you expect them to be done. But then you have to find out why and figure out, okay, my expectation wasn't met. How can I communicate what I actually need? And then, is what I'm thinking actually important? So this is one of those things when you're delegating for the first time, you've been doing it. You're never going to find someone who's going to do things exactly like you 100% of the time, because we're all different people. We all have different point of views. We all have different things that make us unique. So even if it was creating a presentation with the data that's given to us, those presentations are never going to look 100% identical. There's always going to be something different. So you then need to challenge yourself of, why does your way matter? Why does what you need matter? And I always tell my clients, if your answer is because I want it that way or because I said so, then it doesn't actually matter. That's personal opinion versus a business need. And when we start letting other people into our business, we need to manage and communicate things from a business need versus a personal want. And sometimes
Okay.
it's hard to let go of that, but you can really start challenging yourself of, why does this really matter?
Yes, I totally love this. Okay, so I actually did, I don't know if it was a workshop that I was doing. I think it was a workshop that I was doing recently. I don't think I put it in the podcast, but essentially, like, I was talking about that whole idea of, okay, there are people that work in their businesses every single day, but there's a different aspect that comes into play when we work on our business instead of in our business. And we can separate that connection, that emotional connection to our business, and allow us to perform better, because then we don't take everything personally, right? And so it's more
Right.
for the good of the company versus a personal attack on us because they're not doing it the way we would do it or whatever. And how this also plays into our identity and separating our identity from us and the business, that we are not the business, right?
Right.
And so I think that really plays in on the mental side of how to make this work, is making sure that there's that separation of, I am not the business, right? I own the business. I'm the CEO. I run the business, but I work on my business. I don't work in it, because as soon as you're inside of it, you just can't see everything with clarity the same way you can from an eagle eye view, right?
Right. And I think another important thing about that, like, you might have some people that are going in saying, but I am my business. I'm a self-branded business. Maybe they're doing something where they're 100% the face that the clients see. And they're like, wait, I am my business. So this separation doesn't work. And I always challenge that and say, yes, it still does. Like, yes, there's things that you are the face of your business. You might be working one-on-one with the clients. You might be the person that's going out and doing podcast interviews, going live on your Facebook page and stuff like that, where you have to be there in front of people and your voice matters. But everything that's going on behind the scenes, your clients don't care if it's you or someone else, as long as it's done with the way that they expect things to be done when they're working with your brand. So there's always ways, like, even when you're self-branded, to separate yourself from the behind the scenes things. Those things where if you do it or someone else does it, the client is never going to know the difference.
And two, it's a little bit like we can get into dangerous territory when we are inside of that self-branding space, because then when there is any difficulties with either a client or there's some sort of rejection or whatever, a proposal doesn't go through, whatever, we take it personally as if it's to us, right? And so being able to, even if you are the face of the company, recognize that there still needs to be an emotional detachment from that, even though when you're marketing, it comes in looking that way. On the back end, like you were saying, is there needs to be an emotional detachment between the business and you, so that you can say, okay, there's some things that can adjust here, or we can make some tweaks over there, so that I can work and I can be the face of the business, but I don't have to be the same connection in that same way, right? Like,
Right.
it's kind of like even the idea of, you look at a marriage, right? It's yes, I'm my husband's wife, but I'm also Leah, right?
Yep.
So I have a connection to him, but me as a human being is a separate piece and identity as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. I remember someone I was working with, they were talking about social media. They're like, social media is the number one thing I'd love to get off my plate. But they're like, I can't do it because I need to be there and be that face. I need to show up and do the lives. I want to be the person answering questions in my Facebook group. So I guess I need to keep that. And I was like, hold on. There's so much more to social media than doing that. Like, let's list all the tasks that you have to do for social media. And okay, you show up and do lives, you show up and answer questions, but no one's going to know if you're not posting like the reoccurring posts that go in there. No one's going to know that you're not looking at the analytics and deciding what to post and what not to post. Like, no one's going to know all these other things. So do what you need to do and hand off the rest when it's the right time in your business to hand off the rest.
absolutely. I remember listening to a woman that I think it was actually Dana from Boss Moms,
Yep.
right? And she was talking about, and she has a massive group. Her Facebook community is huge, and she was talking on a podcast, I believe, with, oh goodness, who was it? Amy Porterfield, and they were talking about building a group and doing the social media stuff. And she was talking about how she has a team of people that literally will go through and be like, okay, these are the people, they will pick out, these are responses that Dana needs to go in and respond to these ones. And so she goes in and they give her a list of, hey, these are the connections that you need to make. And they're taking care of all of the other stuff. Right.
Yep.
And so she doesn't have to be in the trenches of all of it, but she shows up at the most important times and they can say, hey, this is what's happening inside the group. Do you want to jump in? Like your next live, you may want to address this piece or stuff like that. Right. And so that then she can still do her business and be in the front and doing all the other things. And she can be there for the most important parts, but you don't have to be the person that drives the machine as well as the mechanic that fixes everything underneath as well. Right.
Correct. Yep. That's exactly it.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. I love it. We've gone through these things fairly quickly. Is there anything else that you would say is really important for people to know, or something that you feel is something that people, maybe it's kind of like one of the lies that comes with building a team, or maybe it's something that is kind of like the truth that people don't see about building it? Like, what's the ugly truth about how it works, or a lie that people tell themselves around it? Maybe you can open up one of those can of worms for us.
I have two things that I want to talk about there. So we'll start talking about, okay, we'll go to the ugly truth first. So with it, and I was actually recently having a conversation about this with a client, and especially like right now with today's economic market, she's like, what happens if right now I'm having a good time in my business, but then the tables start to turn and I hire somebody and then I have to let them go? And as the reality of sometimes that's business. You can look at the huge successful companies out there. Occasionally they have to let people go because they realize a department's no longer working well. They have to save money somewhere and they have to let someone go. It happens no matter what the size of your business is. So yes, we bring on people at the right time, but then things might change. You might hire someone for this role, your business changes and evolves and you no longer need that role anymore, you need something else. So while we always want to do what's best for the team members that we bring on and the individuals for them, sometimes we have to make the right decisions for our business, which means don't not hire somebody because you're afraid in the future you're going to have to let them go, but know that's possibly the reality that something might happen and you might love that person, love the work that they're producing, but either you cannot afford them any longer or your business no longer needs them. So don't let that fear stop you from hiring, but do know that sometimes it is the ugly truth about having a team that they can't be with you any longer.
Okay, awesome. That one's great. Okay, and what was the second point that you wanted to mention?
So the other thing was just one more thing to realize when you're going into like kind of some of that false perception is you don't have to be perfect the first time around. You don't have to be perfect ever. You don't have to be that perfect leader. It's okay to be the imperfect leader. It's okay to make mistakes. The biggest thing is if you make a mistake and you tell your team one thing and then you realize, oh, it should have been this, own up to it. Say, hey, I told you this. I told you wrong. We actually need to do this. It's on me, but let's work together and correct it. Or sometimes when you're going in and you're hiring your very first team member, I always tell people, tell them when they're coming in, you're the first employee of my business. You're the first team member I'm outsourcing something to. I might not be perfect all the time. Can you help me become better by let's having constructive conversations every once in a while where you share good feedback, or share not necessarily good, the positive, but share like feedback that's going to help me grow. It's own up and let people know that sometimes you're new to things, that you're learning, that you're going to do the best that you can, but it doesn't mean you're going to be perfect 100% of the time. Because even the best leaders out there, we have slip ups where all of a sudden we say the wrong thing, we need to take it back, we do the wrong thing, we do something that we think is right, and then we gain more information and knowledge, and then we're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, or I should have told my team this. So you're never going to be perfect 100% of the time. So don't fear that you have to be right out the gate.
Awesome. I love that. One of the things that I love the most about that is that it strengthens from the very beginning. It strengthens a relationship and brings trust. And that trust is so needed inside of a working environment. If you're going to continue to work with these people, you guys need to be able to trust each other, not just you being able to trust them as an employee, but being able to have that reciprocated where they trust you as the employer as well, so that it is that connection. Because the more connected you are, the more flow happens inside of your business and the more productivity happens. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah. I just remember one of my managers that I had back when I was in corporate, we would often, like, we had our weekly meetings where we'd get together and talk about things going on. And there was a time where there was a lot of change going on in our department. And sometimes you just have those emotional reactions to it, or you're not necessarily agreeing with the change that's going on. And sometimes we would just have those real honest, like, conversations of being like, how do you really feel about this? And then be able to switch it to say, okay, that's how we feel about it. Now, what can we actually do about it? And just having that open, trusting relationship where we could have those conversations and then flip it into something productive and positive, it really strengthened the relationship. And I knew then I could go to her with anything because we had that relationship, we had that strength. It was so much better than I had other good manager employee relationships in the past, but that was like one of the best because that level of trust was there above what I experienced with anybody else.
Absolutely. And I love that. And I mean, it really lays out the foundation of what it truly means to manage and to lead people, is coming from a place of integrity where you're willing to not be perfect, and you're willing to admit when you've done something wrong. And when you come in a leadership role like that, how much more likely are they to then admit when they've done something wrong as well, and know that it's a safe place to do that. And then you guys can collaborate and chat and move forward. And
Right.
so I love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a really good point, is your team members aren't going to be perfect 100% of the time. We're all human. We all make mistakes. So creating that environment where they're not afraid to say, I made this mistake. Here's how I'm going to go about fixing it, or I need your help fixing it because the fix is out of my control. It it's so much better than if you're having team members that are hiding things because they're afraid to tell you that they made a mistake.
Oh, absolutely. Right. Because I mean, anything that's going to be withheld then doesn't only mean they made a mistake, but now you don't trust them to be honest with you.
Mhm.
Right. And that's how you burn bridges. That's how teams fall apart. Right.
Yes.
It's not going to continue if there isn't the trust there. Absolutely. I love that. So we've talked about some really cool things. We've talked about when the best timing is. We've talked about creating kind of those 4 spots where you either have a wait list, you're losing customers, you're either losing business because you can't get back to them fast enough, or you're kind of lacking the skill set and you need to free up some time in that sense. We talked a little bit about being able to be very clear on what success looks like inside of that role, so that that person can fulfill that role, and what it looks like to set clear expectations that both people agree upon. And so you guys know that I mentioned this before in other areas as well, as talking about being able to come to a place of where there's agreements, and what that looks like, versus just showing up expecting something that nobody else even knows what you're expecting. And so coming from a place of agreements on expectations is awesome. I love that we talked about those 2 fears as well, and just talking about how, we can fear, um, uh, just remind me now. Okay. So the first fear was, we called it the ugly truth, and now I just lost my mindset. What was the
Yeah.
first one again?
Holding back from hiring because you fear you might have to fire.
Okay, right. So hire or fire, that was the first fear. And then the second one is perfectionism, and the
Yep.
fear of perfectionism. So those are some awesome bits and pieces, you guys. I think this is going to be definitely one of those episodes that is re-listened to again and again, so that people can keep going forward with that. So Jamie, tell us and tell the listeners, where can they find you if they want to get more information about the strategies and the techniques of being able to grow and scale, and just really, put their team together to grow their teams.
Yeah, so the best place to get in touch with me is to go to my website. So it's growingyourteam.com. And then I also have a group on Facebook. So it's Growing Your Team as well. So if you want to join the group so you can connect with me, I go live weekly and I'm always there to answer questions. So you can either go to the website to connect with me there or go to the Facebook group.
Awesome. And I'll make sure that we drop the links in the description as well for the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jamie. And I will look forward to connecting with you again in the future.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want to sincerely thank you and appreciate you today for showing up here on Flip the Switch. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a training session in your mindset mastery, leveling up your business success. And be a good friend. Share this episode with a fellow business builder. I'll see you next week, same time, same place.